What's going on, everybody? This is Snowman. Welcome to your very first, hopefully this is like the very basic of the most basic starting place if you're ever wanting to learn Premiere Pro. I started doing these editing tutorials and I realized, hey, I need a place where like people can start if they know nothing about Premiere, because sometimes I talk and there's this jargon and stuff that's assumed that you already know. So I thought, you know, this might be crazy and I'm gonna try to do it as condensed as I possibly can, but the goal today is we're gonna make like a 5-second video that will walk you through my process in a very condensed way of how I make videos, just so you can get the basics of how to do Premiere if you have no idea whatsoever, no editing knowledge or anything, or at least in how to use Premiere, because it is a little bit different than other editing software that I'd used before. So anyway, I digress. Let's dive in, and essentially I'm going to try to walk you through my whole process here. So we're going to start with a new project. We're going to not do it here. I set up a file already for Premiere Basics, so that's what we'll call it, Premiere Basics, and this is just naming your file and saving it somewhere. You don't have to worry about this stuff. It's probably fine the way it is. Here is essentially the layout of your you have 4 panels, except that the program's not responding. Oh, scared me for a second. You essentially have 4 panels, and I'll explain what each of these 4 panels are. The most important, well, they're not all, they all do different things. So anyway, sorry, my computer's just chugging a little bit. So essentially, this is your timeline in the bottom. This is where you will see the overview of your whole project. You've probably seen a timeline before if you've seen like other YouTubers tweet out their timeline before they post a video or something. This in the upper right hand corner is the final preview of what your video will look like. So the timeline, no one's gonna see the timeline once it's a final video file, but the top right, yeah, that's what people are gonna see your video. Top left is where you edit your footage, essentially, or add effects to different things, and the bottom left here is where you put all of your files. I should have already dragged all this in before we started. So essentially, we're importing our files. These are, again, it's going to be 5 seconds of a video, but I've pre-selected a few very quick things. You can't really see it, but in the bottom right underneath where my face is, it's conforming the different files. It's basically just importing them into Premiere's database. So these are just the different files we're going to use. This is video footage of games. This is a sound effect, and this is background music. I'll mute the music that we're listening to right now when we deal with that, and then something I'm going to throw on top of something else. So anyway, very first thing you ever do when you open a brand new project after you've saved the file, I mean, I inserted the files, but actually before I ever even do that, is you click on the timeline section. You can see when you click on it, it'll put a blue border around the box that's highlighted. So highlight the timeline box, and you're going to press Control-N. That's new, creating a new sequence. And so sequences are the name of the thing that your timeline is. A sequence is essentially a timeline. And then you can select from these presets. I always try to go with 1080 to start. If you have smaller footage, like if you know anything of what I'm talking about the size of your footage, 1080 or 720, I try nowadays to make everything 1080, so I go 1080. If you have 720, obviously you'd select that, but it doesn't really matter, whatever you want to pick, because I think some of my footage is 720 and we'll have to resize it. So anyway, now you're looking at your sequence, and these are the different tracks. So this is video track 1, 2, 3, and you can add more on top, and this is audio track 1, 2, and 3, A, 1, 2, 3, V, 1, 2, 3. And this is the time at the top of how long your video is. And your sequence is now an item over here in your stuff box, whatever you call this thing. This is just where you have all your files. Save often is always good, so Control-S is just saving things, making sure you're saving your progress. Okay, so once I've made my sequence, the second step I do is I right-click on my sequence, and I go to Properties. No, I'm sorry, Sequence Settings, not Properties. And this is I only do this if I have 60 FPS footage that I want to put in. So this confused me at first because time base is what you want. You want the frames per second. You want it to be 60, but that's not an option. It has 29.97. That's 30. The way things calculate in Premiere is weird, but basically that's 30. So the way you get 60 FPS is you actually have to go to Custom, and then you can change the time base to 60. So 60 FPS. And again, the rest of this stuff is fine. There's some weird shenanigans going on, but don't worry about that for now. So anyway, I just changed my frames per second to 60 instead of 30. And that's, again, you only want to do that if you have 60 FPS footage. If everything's 30, it won't matter. It'll still only render 30 FPS. So anyway, so now let's dive in. The next step that we want to do is, I actually have not recorded it yet, but I have been waiting to do it so that you can see my recording process of recording audio. So the program I use currently is called Audacity. Adobe has its own audio program. I literally don't remember off the top of my head what it's called, but they have one that's better. But I just use Audacity. It's a free program. It works great. It does everything I want it to. So I'm just gonna record real quick our 5-second audio voiceover for the game, or sorry, for the video, because essentially we're gonna drag some video footage on top in our timeline. We're gonna put our voiceover in the audio, and then we're gonna put some background music underneath, and then we'll edit it as we go. So I need some audio, so I'm just gonna record a very quick thing, and we'll go through the super condensed quick process of recording audio. Here we go. First of all, I wait 5 seconds of absolute silence at the beginning, and that's important. I'll tell you in a second. So I'm just gonna say, games are great. No, I'm gonna say, games are good. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. That's it. So you can see it recorded everything I said. This is me saying, so I'm just gonna say, and then this is me saying, games are great. No. But so we don't want any of that. We're just gonna delete it. Literally highlight it and delete it. We want this bit right here. Games are good. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. That's all we want, is just that. And I can probably chop it down a little bit. This is essentially what audio editing is you're just, what sounds good? Games are good. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna show you something that I do in my own audio editing sometimes. I'm gonna select a tiny little selection of blank noise, this emptiness, no noise. I'm hitting Control-C to copy it, and then I'm actually gonna go ahead and paste it just in between each of these, just to give a little more space. Games are good. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah, I just wanted a little more space because I know what I'm gonna do here, so I wanted just a little bit of space. So this is our audio. Again, it's like 4 seconds. So we're gonna export the audio and just call it, oh, whoa, hold on, I almost totally forgot the whole point of me doing this in the first place. And I am a doof and forgot that I left this empty space at the beginning for a second, for a reason on purpose. We're gonna add some effects. So I need to go noise reduction. This is just to make your voice sound better. You need to get the noise profile. So that's the blank noise at the beginning, and then you select all of it, and you gotta do noise reduction. Okay, that just gets rid of like clicks or booms or background noise from different things. Then I do normalize, and that just makes everything like the highs are less high and the lows are less low. And then I go to equalization and I add bass boost, and I also add treble. And this is totally going to differ. Everyone's thing is going to be different, but you just mess around with different settings, see what sounds good. I'm going to add back in my blank noise that I added there a little bit, chop this down, and then get rid of that end. And again, listening to it, games are good. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, I'm actually going to add a little bit more noise back there. Okay, now I'm going to export the audio. Sorry, again, this is just a very fast version of what I normally do, but I'm just getting some audio here. We'll just call it audio. It's going to be a WAV file. That's what Audacity exports as. Oh, a little pop-up popped up on my other monitor, so you didn't see that. Okay, but it exported as an audio file, and it's called audio. You can see right here. So again, I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to drag it in. This is just our audio. And I'm trying to walk you through the process that I normally do, because I do record voiceover before I edit anything else. And that's because you pretty much need your audio to know what the heck you're editing. So this is only a 4-second video, so it's gonna be super short. So again, the same audio file, like the WAV files that you saw in Audacity, which we don't need Audacity anymore, so we're gonna close it out. Don't need to save changes. It was a quick little 4-second thing. So this is our audio. Now it's in Premiere. Games are good. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Okay, and so you can, every time you like drag over it, you're gonna hear it and stuff. That's just how it works. So this is your basic timeline. Our thing is 4 seconds. It's like a 4-second video. Obviously it's gonna be longer if it's a regular video, but all I did is I dragged my audio file onto the audio 1 track where I want it. And I'm even gonna like cut this back a little bit so you can see there's a little thing on the edge here to just trim. So I'm gonna trim it over and then drag it to the beginning so that so there's no dead space at the beginning. Okay. So that's the first thing I do is I put audio in so I know where to make my cuts of video files. So what I'm basically going to do is have 3 games shown as I say games are good. So I'm just going to have 3 video files. Games are good. And then a 4th game file footage over thanks for coming to my TED Talk. And that's it. Okay, so let's just start doing that. Let's start putting in our gameplay footage because I have 4 games here. I have Banjo-Kazooie, Enter the Gungeon, Celeste, and Dark Souls. So let's just start dragging stuff in. Let's start with maybe Celeste. It doesn't really matter, but I'm essentially gonna. So this is where I was saying on the left here now is your editing of footage section of the, you know, of the footage, your layout. Sorry, my mind's a million things. This is the final draft over here. You can see it's black because there's no videos. Over here is the editing of the stuff down here, and so it pops it up here. First major shortcut that you need to know. We're going to go through basic Premiere shortcuts. The first one that's very, very important when you're dropping in footage is I and O. So the keys I, literally I as in I am, and then O, I and O. They're right next to each other on the top of your keyboard there. That stands for in and out. Sorry, I got like congestion. So anyway, in and out is how you select what footage you want to put in your video. So let's say I want this really quick shot of Celeste jumping on this cloud up to this ledge. I'm going to start by hitting I, and you can see what that did is it made an in, you know, an in bracket all the way to the end of the video because I hadn't selected an out yet. So that's the in, and then I'm going to hit space bars to play any footage, but it'll play whatever box is selected. So because the top is selected here, if I hit space, it's going to play. And then, I don't know, hopefully it won't like be glitchy on your video, but it might. And then that's all I want is Celeste jumping on a cloud. So then I'm going to hit O, and you can see it has just that tiny little bit selected. That's the video clip we're going to use. These right here are important. Drag video only and drag audio only. If I click on the video part of the video here and I just drag it down, it's going to drag both. It's going to drag the video and the audio of the game footage. So you can see here, they're linked together currently, but there's basically the video part of my footage and the audio part of my footage. But we don't really want that. We're going to add our own background music, and we have our voiceover, so we don't need the background music of the game at all. So I actually don't want to do that. I just hit Edit Undo, Control Z to get rid of that. I just want the video only, and I use this more than anything else probably to drag footage in. I do the I and O, the in and out, and then I say drag video only, and then I drag it in. Now, let's go back to the top. We only want it for this first word, right? So I'm going to cut it after the first word. So it goes, games are good. So it goes longer than we wanted. It goes into the R. So the audio is a good way to measure it here. Because we have our audio thing, we can drag it pretty much frame by frame. Also another shortcut, if you just use the arrow keys, it will walk frame by frame. And since it's a 60 frame sequence, there are 60 frames in a second. And so I want to cut it right here at the end of the first word. Now here's your next shortcut keys that are invaluable in editing. C and V. C stands for cut, and so if you press C, you can see your mouse cursor turns into a little razor blade, but right now it has a red line through it. That's because it's not over anything to cut. But if I go over on top of either of these, I can cut them. So I'm going to cut, so I press C to turn it into a razor, and then I'm just going to click right where I want to cut. And it kind of magnetizes to the blue line right here. That's my tracker. That's because this is selected, that's snap. If I don't have that selected, I can you know, do it kind of frame by frame here of exactly where I want to cut it, but I want it to snap because I've already selected where I want it. It's where this tracker is, so I just click, boom, and now it has cut my footage into 2 separate video files. You can see I can select both of them now, but I don't want this. This is the excess, so I can delete it. And the reason that's important is it's just faster than if, for example, it's all this and I wanted to drag it like I did earlier. I could drag it, but, you know, it's kind of like imprecise a little bit. That's probably right. Or I could even put the tracker there and then drag it. That is a way to do it, and that's totally fine. But it's just faster to just do cut. Just C, cut, boom. And then V turns it back into a regular cursor. So CV, V goes back into selection, just regular selection cursor. C is cut. CV, you want it to go back and forth. So delete the extra, that's all we want. We just want that game footage over games, R, and then we're gonna put a different game footage over R, good, and then the 4th one over thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So let's do freaking Dark Souls, why not? Okay, so let's just get a quick shot of me fighting this Titanite demon. So again, you know, I can select anywhere I want in the... Oh, actually, yeah, let's get me walking across this bridge of blades here, because this is just fun. So let's do like... Oh, where's it going to be? See, I'm hitting I for the in as I'm going here. Oh, never mind. See, and this is... Sometimes you trick yourself with your own footage. You think, let's just get a shot of me looking at the blades. Why not? Again, dragging the video over here. I hit O for the end of it, and so we're doing that. So it'll just be a shot of me looking at blades, because why not? Actually, you know what, and again, this is me just deciding this as I'm video editing. I'm going to use that for the end. Because there's no movement, that'll be good for thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So here it'll just be no movement of me watching blades, and that's it. So I'm going to cut, again, see how fast that was, C, click, delete. I just hit the delete key on my keyboard, V back to selection. And then now I have that, and again, I could probably chop it a little closer here. You can zoom in. What I'm doing there is I'm holding the shift key, and then I'm just scrolling up and down on my mouse wheel. If I don't hold shift, it does it, but it's a lot slower. If I hold shift, it goes really fast, and just goes real fast. So, you know, looking at it real close up, yeah, I could go like 1 more frame probably. And so there you go. That'll be the footage for thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Now hold on here just a minute. You can see the footage has a big black bar around it, right? There's a black bar around this footage. So that's because this footage is in 720. It's not in 1080 like I made the sequence. So it's just the size of what it is, and so I need to make it bigger. Now, ideally, this isn't great because it's gonna stretch the footage. It's gonna make it a little more blurry. But for the sake of this, you know, example, it'll be fine. So what you do if it's 720 and your video is 1080 is it's 150% larger. So the scale on your editing menu up here, your effects panel. So if I don't have this selected, it's not there. But if I click on it, it will bring up the effects panel up here on the left. And this is like position. I'll go over some of this stuff in a bit. But essentially scale is all you need. And I'm going to say 150. And boom, there you go. It just makes it the size of the screen because I just happen to know that already, that 150 is 720 going to 1080. But if you didn't know that, you can also drag it left to right. So say it auto-saved for me there. Say I just didn't know, I could drag it left and right and go, oh, okay, 151. Well, let me try 150. Okay, yeah, that's exactly right. And so you can drag it. That's also a way to just guesstimate. So there you go. That just made our footage fill the whole screen, and that's good. Okay, let's go back. Let's do, since we did Celeste here, let's do Banjo next, and then we'll do Enter the Gungeon third. So Banjo-Kazooie, let's get a shot of me fighting this crab boss. That's a good shot because it's just the crab dying. So again, dragging the video, I did the in and out. So I did I and O, and then I got the crab over here. So I'm gonna,
good.
And then I'm gonna drag it again to where that is.
Good.
That's the start of the G.
Good.
Good, good. So I want it there. If later we find out I actually want it to be here, we can adjust that. But now you can see the transition from video file to video file. It'll go.
Games are good.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want. Games are good. Like right on the beat of me saying the words. Let's just throw the last one in really quickly. Enter the Gungeon. So let's get a shot of me fighting this boss. This is a wild shot, so let's just do it. Ooh, very loud audio. Okay, and again, just dragging it down. I did the I and the O again, very quick. It might seem very fast if you're not used to seeing it that quick, but essentially dragged it in, tidied it up all around here, and here's what it's going to look like so far. Is it's just going to be me saying
Games are good. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Okay, and that's a very, very basic video file. Now, let's real quick talk about this because I have a border on my banjo footage, and it's not the end of the world. That's just the way it was when I recorded the footage. But let's say I wanted to get rid of that. There's two ways I could do it. One, I could scale it bigger like I did with Dark Souls. I could scale it up and just make it bigger until it goes away. Looks like 129. Sometimes I would try and make it like precise, like I'd go down one piece until it like is 125. Okay, yeah, it'd be 125. And so that's one way, and now it's just bigger, and that's not bad. You can see like that's totally fine. That's probably what I would do if I were actually making this. But another way to do that, just so you can see, is also you can crop it. So here, there's an effects panel down here in the bottom of your bin, and you go to effects, and this is where you can search for different effects on any sort. They have a wide assortment of different stuff you can do to your video files. I'm going to say crop. So we want to crop out. So I just typed it in the search bar and it popped up down here. Take crop, drag it up, and now we can crop the left, top, right, and bottom of the video. So again, this is selected, so this is the effects panel for this banjo clip. Let's say we just want to crop the left side. I just guessed 10% and that was right, so 10 off the right, 10 off the left. And there you go. Hey, now that border is totally gone because all it did is it cropped it off the edge, cropped off the left and right. And now it'll have black bars, so that's not great either. But again, like I said, it's kind of your choice. Like, if I were doing it, I would say 125 and just make it fill the whole screen. And there you go. And so let's say that we just do that. I don't need that crop anymore, so I could clear it and delete it if I wanted to. But, you know, you also could leave it on. It wouldn't be the end of the world. Okay, so we have our basic 4 clips. Let's add in our background music now. So, you know what? Actually, I'll do that at the very end. So then we'll have our regular music playing, but then at the very end, I'll mute that music and we'll add in our audio there. But we have the basic structure of our video here. We have the 4 video clips. We have the audio. I want to have this TED Talk logo pop up on the end here. So again, I'm just taking the TED logo, there it is, and I just dragged it over into the file, and now you can see, obviously it's a little big. I want to scale it down, so again, I'm just going to drag it just to show you. Dragging it down, probably want it to be like that big, 46%, maybe let's say 50 to just make it round. Okay, and then again, I'm going to do C and V, C to cut, and whoop, V to go back to my selection, select that, delete. Again, very quick way to just chop up your stuff. Okay, and what I actually want this to do is I want it to kind of appear as I'm saying, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So here it's saying, thanks for coming to, yeah, and I'll have it start right about here. So if I go, what I want it to do is fade in, but I also want it to, I'm going to teach you just very, very basic animation here. I want it to fade in, and I want it to rotate like into and come into place a little bit, like a thanks for coming to my TED Talk type thing. So here's what I'm going to do is step 1, I'm going to do that opacity. So let's go to like right here, and opacity is how see-through something is. If I make this 0, you can see it'll fade out and then that TED thing's totally gone. So opacity is how see-through it is. If I was at 50%, it's like kind of see-through. So I want it to end fully visible, but at the beginning, I'll make it 0. And what I'm doing, this is your animation panel, and essentially you're making keyframes that tell it go from this to this. Those are my 2 keyframes. Right now it's 0, and the second one's 100. I'm saying go from this to this in this amount of time, and in between, it's going to fill in all the blanks for you. So every frame, it's going to do like a basic, you know, mathematical calculation of how much percentage per frame is it going to fill in. 12.5, 25, 30, you know, 50, and then it goes and goes and goes, and then it's fully visible. And what it looks like in the video now is like it fades in.
Coming to my TED Talk.
Now that's really quick. I actually want it to fade in a little bit faster, or a little slower rather, so I can just drag it over to the right like that. And now it'll be a little slower.
Coming to my TED Talk.
Good, so that's a little bit slower. It's kind of a fine art, the act of animation.
Coming to my TED Talk.
But that's good. And so that alone would be fine. It fading in is really cool, but just to show you again a little bit more about animation, let's do some rotation. So this is a quick way to just go frame to frame. So I'm gonna go to this frame, and then rotation, the way to add a keyframe is, well, actually, no, yeah, you need to select this little stopwatch thing, go boop, and then now the final, at the very end where animation ceases, where this is 100% opacity, it'll be 0 rotation, just the way it is like regular. But if I go over here to the beginning and I make it, say, -3,
to my TED Talk.
you can see there's a very tiny bit of rotation. It goes,
whoop,
just rotates into place. But I want a little more, like, let's say -10.
my TED Talk.
Now, that looks weird. It just kind of like, it just rotates, but it's still in the middle. So let's also maybe add a little bit of position change. So that's just literally the X and Y axis of your thing. So 720, 540 is the base X and Y position, and just when you move those, it'll be more left or more right. So let's just say I want it to be like a little left and a little down at the beginning. But then here again, sorry, this is me messing up a little bit. 725, 40 is the middle, the exact middle. But at the beginning, I want it to be a little off to the side. So this is what it'll look like.
To my TED Talk.
Now that it doesn't look good at all, but it kind of rotates and comes into position. Now, at this point, I might realize, you know, this is not worth it, and I might delete it and just have it fade in, because the fade in actually looked pretty fine. But let's say maybe I wanted to rotate it a little more, like let's give it like a 30% rotation. And another thing I can do is something called ease in and ease out. So if I highlight these two things, actually I should highlight all of them, and right click and say temporal interpolation and say ease out, and then over here I say ease in. All that's going to do is that's going to change so that the animation isn't fully linear, but instead it like eases out to full speed and then eases in to a slowing stop. And it just makes the animation a little more smooth.
To my TED Talk.
So you can see there it gave a little more speed to the animation.
To my TED Talk.
Again, it's not great. I would tinker with it more
to my TED Talk
to make it look better, but just again for fun's sake, I'm showing you just a little bit of the animation.
Coming to my TED Talk.
So there you go. Now, finally, just to show you a little bit more with effects, let's add a quick shadow. So I went to my effects panel here, drop shadow, pull it up. Now I added a little bit of shadow to the TED. You can't really see it, but if I make it fully 100%, make the distance bigger, like 20. Yeah, now you can see it coming in a little bit. Let's actually make it bigger, like 100, just so you can really see. Yeah, that's the thick shadow there. It might be hard to see just because it's on a darker background, but let's say I want to give it that, 20, just a little bit of shadow, and then softness is how like blurry it is. So if I give it 20 softness, it's just a little blurry. And in this case, it doesn't really matter. You can't really like even see it, but I would normally probably add a little shadow just to give it like a little something. 75% opacity, so it's not fully solid, but then it would look like this.
Coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, again, I don't like it. I don't really like that animation, but again, just showing you what it would look like. So here's our final bit, starting at the top.
Games are good. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
There you go. A little bit of animation, a little bit of game footage. Finally, let's pause our music here, and we're gonna add in our, oops, not that, cat meowing. I forgot I was gonna add a cat meow sound effect at the end. Let's in and out it real quick. I totally forgot about this. So again, I in and out IO to select the bit I wanted, and then I drag it to the audio track right here, and so it would go, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. God, it's so dumb. That's very loud. So here I would go to the effects panel in the meowing sound effect and make that maybe -12. So it's just a lot quieter. Yeah, much better. Okay. And it's just silly. That's really stupid. But again, I was just showing you all the different things that I may do in a video, sound effects. Okay, but here we want is the music I was going to use. So this is a really old song that I used to use for the intro of my videos. I don't want this beginning part, probably. Let's see if this part's any better. So here's where like you can use your timing a little bit for the in and out. If I wanted to get the bit right where the beat hits and it hits in like this, I would go. hit I right when the beat hit, and that's the in, and then now I'm just gonna let it go. Gonna let it just go for a few seconds, and then drag the audio all the way over here, and now that's our background music for the thing. So let's say going again all the way back to the beginning here, saving.
Games are good. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
As you can see, it's very loud. That's way louder than we want. So we want to turn that down. Again, just like the meowing, let's say negative 16 decibels is what you're measuring there. So again, I'm just bringing up the effects panel by clicking on it, going up here. It automatically makes a keyframe if you just change the decibels. So I just did right there, this keyframe. And it doesn't matter where the keyframe is because there's no animation. But let's say I wanted it to fade out. I would go over here. And I would this would be the beginning of the fade out, and then I could go all the way to the very end and make it like, you know, infinite, negative 287. It's like it's nothing at all. And then it'll fade out. Okay, so that's a fade out. The meowing made it a little weird, but here's the fade out.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, so it's like a fade out. That's a very fast fade out. Maybe I'd do it back a little bit and just like to here and say.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Okay, so it just fades out. I'll put the meow back. It's stupid. Anyway, so that'd be a fade out. Also, though, here's another really quick thing. I know I'm like way over. I tried to be concise and quick. Let's say I didn't want to do the fade out myself. There's also a very fast way to do fade outs. If you right click when this red arrow is visible on the edge of a clip, so any edge, I could do it on videos, I could do it on audio, right click and say apply default transition, and it'll automatically add in a fade. And this is a crossfade to nothing. So it'll automatically fade out. Ready?
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
There you go. It's already the default transition when you boot up Premiere for the first time to fade. So default transition, fade it out. So it just faded by itself. I didn't have to do the editing on my own. I just did it for me. I was gonna do title cards. I was gonna just have it pop up and say like games are good as titles on top of here. But I've talked long enough. It's long enough. You are probably sick and tired of hearing me talk. Plus, I've already done a whole video on title cards, so you can just go check that one out, and it'll basically cover everything I would cover here about titles. But I will say you want to add some text on screen, just so you know how to do it. Go to File, New, Legacy Title. And then it'll just give you some, the base stats here are good, say okay. And then this is the title editing screen. You can add text here. So again, let me just for example, say games, change the text, or sorry, change the font, say I want Bebas New or something. That's a normal one that I use a lot. There, you can change the size, 300, I don't know. This is a quick center and horizontal and vertical centering. And there you go, games. Now, again, maybe you want some drop shadow so it's easier to read the footage. Maybe I want it 100%. I don't know. But anyway, games. And then it becomes an item in your bin down here. So then games, I could drag it on top. Boop, games. I know I just said I wouldn't go over this, but I'm doing it very quickly just to give you an idea of if you want to add text, that's how. That's a very, very, very brief way, but I go more in depth about the stuff you can do with title cards in that other title card video. It has a little Spider-Man thumbnail that you can click on. Anyway, that was my more exhaustive than I was hoping Premiere Basics video, but I hope it at least gets you interested in seeing what the heck this whole editing stuff is all about. Any final thoughts? I was just going to say this thing here is the playback resolution. So you can do full, but Premiere's kind of like a heavy intensive load program. It uses a lot of RAM and CPU. So I always put this at half playback resolution. That just makes it so that when it's actually physically playing, like this, if I hit play,
good,
it makes the resolution half of what it actually will fully be, the full resolution of the video. And that just cuts your processing load by half, basically. And you can also do it a quarter, and so it'd be really blurry.
Thanks.
You can't really tell much of a difference. You can with this Dark Souls.
Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
And you can see it like adjust itself to go back to normal. Like if I do, like, you may not be able to tell at all. I can tell. Anyway, that's a way to reduce processing load. If you do full, it'll be like full processing because it's rendering out the final exactly everything it'll look like at the end. But other than that, Then say your video is done and you want to export. Let's do that very quickly. File, export, media. You want to make sure your sequence is selected before you select that. So this is the final thing. You would want to name it whatever you want. I don't want to put it in this good game design folder. I want to put it in my Premiere Basics folder, and we'll call it fine. Sequence 01 is fine. Call it whatever you want. And it's 5 seconds long. Okay, and then I would hit export. I'm not going to do that right now because, again, big, heavy workload. But that's it. You would hit export, and then the final video file is done, and it's just a video, and you can just upload that to whatever you want to upload it to, YouTube, what may have you. So that's what I'm going to do with this video file that I'm recording right now. So anyway, that's Premiere Basics. Very basic. I hope you got something out of it, and I hope you enjoyed my ramblings. There will be many more editing tutorials to come. There's already some here on the website, so look around. If you're interested in more detailed stuff, I got other stuff in the pipeline as well. So I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for watching my editing stuff, tips and tricks. It's me, Snowman, signing out. Okay, bye.